So we have 2019 and 2024. And in this time, we had the VIN, then like here, we have MGC, and all the way back here is the last Moyu 4x4, AoSu WR M. So when's the next Moyu 4x4? Oh. So it's been 5 years now since the AoSu WR M, so I'm really excited to check out Moyu's newest 4x4. This is the AoSu V7, which really follows Moyu's naming scheme. We got the Weilong V9, V10, RS3 V5, and it got me thinking about all of the previous AoSu cubes, and immediately I was like, wait, 7? That doesn't make sense. It was the original AoSu, then the GTS 1 and 2, and the WRM. But it turns out they're also including the mini AoSu, which I guess technically was a different design besides just it being smaller. And they're also including the AoSu GT, which is a cube I literally have never heard of until today. So I think it's a cube that wasn't released worldwide, and I really don't know anything about it. So I guess, yeah, technically AoSu V7. It looks like there's gonna be 4 versions of this cube. The cube is gonna basically come with core magnets, and then there's also gonna be extra magnets in the feet of the pieces, similar to the Steven mod, but I think it's gonna be done a little differently. The version that we have here has core magnets and standard piece magnets and just glossy coating. There's no UV. So this is the AoSu V7, and the first thing you notice when you pick it up is just how small it is. So this is the AoSu WRM, and the AoSu is already small for a 4x4. And now the V7 here, it looks like about a 1.5 to 2 millimeters smaller. So what it looks like is going on here is that the outer layers are exactly the same width, but then the inner layers, I would imagine both of them are just made a millimeter thinner. So what that creates as well is an outer layer that is slightly thicker than the inner layers. And we'll get into this more in a second, but I really like that. Like it makes the outer layers feel really good. So just another like visually interesting thing about this cube, it's got these like RS3 Super centerpieces here with that like 45-degree cutoff there, and then it just kind of slopes down. And the other big thing that you notice picking it up the first time is just the weight. It feels really light. So here's the VIN, 118, AoSu WRM, even heavier, even though it's smaller, 124, and then AoSu V7, 98. So yeah, it is significantly lighter. It's really noticeable. All right, so enough yapping. I'm gonna actually turn the cube now. Let's check it out. So we've actually had this sample for a little while, like over a week now, and I've been using it since we got it, and this is like the best turning 4x4 I've ever used. Like it's so fast. It's also loud. That's definitely one thing to keep in mind with this cube. It's not like quiet like the GTS 2 or anything, but there's no 4x4 that exists that I can turn like this. It's just so compact and has fast outer layers and these like wider outer layers too. Like it's just so easy to turn and it just feels so good. And the inner layers honestly might even be faster than the outer layers. Like you just don't even notice really going between inner and outer layers. Like there's not a noticeable change in feel. It's really consistent. And I think it really is just a combination of the size mixed with the really fluid turning, because I've used smaller 4x4s before, and it's not like my mind was blown when I used them, but it's because the performance didn't like match up. But now we have a small 4x4 that also has really good turning. So the effect of the small size you can actually like take advantage of, if that makes sense. I don't even know if this makes any sense. Like this is kind of just bro logic, but like I feel like when I pick up the VIN again, my turning is slower, not because the cube itself is slower, but because it's bigger. Like, when I turn this VIN cube and then I turn this, I don't think the VIN is like slower than this. If I just directly compare like what's the friction levels between these two cubes? Feels quite similar, but like the actual experience of turning it feels so much easier to do on this than on here. I really think it'll just work for specific turning styles more than others though, and I think it just really works for my turning style, but I guess I'm trying to think of things that I don't like about it, or things that I think people might not like if they try it. And I guess one thing is I don't think I would be that surprised if someone thought that it felt cheap. Like, it does have a degree of flex to it where it's just a little bit spongy and sometimes can feel like the pieces are just moving and shifting around a little too much. And it is just like a really loud and kind of clacky, crunchy sounding cube. And with the size of the cube too, it just kind of gives off those Meilong vibes. So I can definitely see how someone would just immediately be like, this doesn't really seem that great. And you can definitely get some like nasty lockups with this. It's not that the cube is immune to it, but I haven't had that problem. Like, I honestly find this to be the least locky 4x4 that I've pretty much ever used. What I notice more so is that the cube just feels crunchy, and it's like it's crunching through all the corner cuts. It's not like locking up, but you can definitely feel all the pieces crunching around each other, trying to get out of each other's way. I just personally have gotten way less big lockups on this than the other 4x4s. But your mileage may vary, and it's also kind of setup dependent. The thing that's so surprising to me is that this cube is stock. Like, it's dry. I haven't done anything to it. I haven't felt the need to add lube, really. I think it probably just has like some FC lube that we threw in when we first got it, but it is not like a proper detailed lube setup or anything. It's pretty much stock. And stock tensions too, like, I haven't changed anything about it. This cube pretty much just feels good to go right out of the box. Okay, so it's been a couple days and we now have the highest tier version of the AoSu V7. We still don't have all of the versions, but now that we have this one, we can talk about what the versions are, what the differences are, and what the price is. So let's go through the versions real quick. We still haven't talked about that. So basically how it works is that there's going to be a standard base version with no core magnets and no extra piece magnets, and no UV coating, and that one's gonna be $19.99. So very nice price for that cube. And then the exact same thing with UV coating is gonna be $25. So those are the single track models. And then there's gonna be a version with core magnets, but without the extra piece magnets and UV coating. So that's basically this cube that we've been reviewing, but with UV. So the double track is just the core magnets. That's all that is referring to. So core magnets plus UV. That one's gonna be $46, so pretty big jump up to that version. And then the triple track version is core magnets, standard piece magnets, and extra piece magnets, and UV coating. And that one is gonna be $56. So let's take a look at this triple track version. So the UV coating really doesn't make too much of a difference. I honestly wish that if you're gonna make a glossy cube, just make all the versions glossy. Like, UV is unnecessary if it's glossy already. Like, the UV is only good if the only other option is matte. So I don't like this. Like, I don't like having glossy and UV. They're basically the same thing. And glossy also feels better than UV anyway. Like, we've all known this. So let's check out this triple track version. And basically this has extra magnets in the pieces that actually attract to the internal edge pieces. And what it's supposed to do is increase stability in the inner layers and just make it smoother, so make the magnets feel less harsh. But another thing we need to talk about is just the magnet strength overall. I didn't bring it up before, but the magnets in the ball core version are pretty weak. They're not that strong, but for me, I really like the magnets where they're at. I don't think they're too strong. And I'm glad that the core magnets are at the strength that they're at, because with core magnets with 4x4s, you get that problem where some slice turns are gonna have like a stronger magnetic pull than others. But because the core magnets aren't super strong, at least to me, it feels like they aren't. I don't notice that really. Basically, I don't think the magnets really need to be any stronger or any more than what's going on in this cube. Because in this cube here, when I use it, it still feels really good. I don't think it's that much worse than this, but I don't like it as much. I think that it's slower. There's just more magnetic pull going on, and it just slows it down and makes it feel more cumbersome to use. Like, this version does have a noticeable difference between the inner and outer layers, whereas this one really doesn't. They feel very similar. And if the goal is to make it smoother, like make the magnets not feel as bumpy, when I turn these cubes slowly, this one feels bumpier. The triple track one, it feels like the magnetic click is a lot more present. When you get to the end of the turn, it's a very strong snap. This is much more subtle. So yeah, initially just really not a big fan of this triple track version. I lock up a lot on this cube, which is really not great considering how hard I was going saying that this cube like never locks up. Like, this specific cube, I don't really lock up on, but This one I do. So I don't want to completely write off this triple track version, but I just feel a lot better recommending just the regular ball core version. I think generally that's going to be better for most people. But I know you guys are going to be curious, so let's take a look at the mechanism, see what these magnets are doing. So we've got an edge piece here. This is what it looks like, and I'm going to split the edge part to show you guys the magnets, but I actually really recommend that you don't do this because one of the magnets is just held in place by friction and it will fall out when you split these. So just keep that in mind. It's very easy for the magnets to fall out and easy to lose. But anyway, let's take a look. So here's the 3 magnets inside the edge. This is your standard piece magnet. And then this magnet right here is the one that's held by friction. So this is the one that could easily fall out. So basically these 2 magnets here attract to the internal piece. If you look inside this, there's a magnet right there, which attracts to this magnet. And this magnet attracts to that magnet right there that you can see through the plastic. So this is the center, and you can see that like RS3 Super V1 corner right there. And then here is the corner piece. Again, this kind of reminds me of the RS3 Super, also this pattern. And then just pretty normal core magnets here. And inside there, you can see that that's where the magnet is going right there into the core. So yeah, definitely a interesting magnet setup, very unique. This is definitely has not been done in a 4x4 before. So while I've got a couple solves playing, just want to give my overall thoughts. I really love this cube, and I think it's like the best Moyu 4x4. I really think it's better than the Vin, honestly, and the MGC. Like, I really think this is just the best 4x4. I've seriously dropped my times like so much after switching to this. Part of it is kind of just, I've been doing a lot of 5 and 6 practice, and it's trickled down into my 4x4 times. But like for years, I've been kind of struggling to consistently get sub 40 and to get a sub 30 single. And I broke my PB single, my first sub 30, like the second day using this cube. And I now consistently average like 36, 37, something. Like, it's crazy how fast my times dropped switching to this. But like I said, I really think it's just gonna work for specific turning styles and for specific kinds of cubers. I don't think everyone's gonna like the small size and the very crunchy turning. I think for some people it's just gonna be too locky, like too unpredictable. But I think for a lot of people, a smaller, lighter, fast 4x4 is exactly what they're looking for. And I can pretty easily see this cube kind of taking over 4x4 and having a lot of people switch to it. The one thing I'm still curious about is how good the non-ball core version is gonna feel, because if that version is comparable to this one, then that might be better than the Vin overall, because I'm still gonna say that the Vin for right now is better as a budget cube because it's so cheap, it's $25, as opposed to these 2 versions being $46 and $56. But if the standard one is also really, really good, then for $20, you could get a cube better than the Vin, potentially. So if you just bought a 4x4, say you just bought the Vin cube, for example, I don't think you need to rush out and buy this right away. Like, I don't think you need to feel bad about your purchase. Like, the Vin is not going to be immediately replaced by this cube. But if you are coming from an older 4x4, like you're on the AoSu WR M, you're on the GTS2, on an MGC that you've been using for a while or something like that, and you want that upgrade to something newer and lighter and faster and all that kind of stuff, this is definitely going to be the cube to look for. Anyways, I'm super happy with this cube. I'm really happy to have a 4x4 that gets me excited about practicing again. So if you guys are at all interested in this cube, check out the link in the description, and that'll do it for me. See you guys later. Bye.